The Boston Celtics beat the Phoenix Suns 99-85. The Los Angeles Clippers beat the Oklahoma City Thunder 90-88. And the Minnesota Timberwolves beat the Utah Jazz 112-102. Over to the NFL, the Kansas City Chiefs beat the Los Angeles Chargers 24-17. For more scores, news, highlights, and more, tune in to Radio Dixie 91.3.
Consistently using condoms can prevent unintended pregnancy and the spread of sexual transmitted infections, including HIV. Planned Parenthood provides women, men, and teens access to birth control, including the morning after pill, condoms, STD testing, and treatment, and medically accurate education. Most Planned Parenthood services are provided on a walk-in basis, located at 595 South Bluff Street, St. George. More information is available at ppau.org or by phone at 674-9933.
All right, here's your temperature forecast for November 19th. The greater Dixie area, 75 highs and 51 lows. For Zion National Park, 76 highs and 58 lows. And for Bryan Head Village, 40 highs and 28 lows. Radio Dixie and Radio St. George. This is Dennis Mattinson.
On the next Chicago Symphony Orchestra program, two works that set off a revolution in music. We'll hear Debussy's sensuous Prelude to the Afternoon of a Faun and Stravinsky's pagan-inspired ballet, The Rite of Spring, plus recent music by John Adams. Join me, Lisa Simeone, next time with the CSO.
The Chicago Symphony Orchestra, Tuesdays from 11 to 1 on Radio St. George 100.3.
Hi, this is Tyler from Hash House A Go-Go, and we've decided to sponsor the DSU radio program. At Hash House A Go-Go, we offer unique dishes, generous portions, and our light and twisted menu with smaller portions. Recently, Hash House A Go-Go was voted best in Southern Utah for breakfast and brunch, serving Indiana homestyle food with a West Coast twist. Hash House A Go-Go by the Red Cliffs Mall, putting the fun back into food.
The Bloomington Roundabout can be the most exciting traffic intersection in St. George. And located just next to it is the Tiki Island Broiler. Island foods such as rice and noodles, tropical pork, sesame chicken, and the unique flavors of the islands. In the back of the Bloomington Courtyard, just off the roundabout. The Tiki Island Broiler. Free hygiene products are available during Women's Resource Center office hours in Holland 489. Also, get a one-time free cloth panty liner from Glad Rags. Email orders at gladrags.com using your Dixie email address and mention this Women's Resource Center offer. Visit wrc.dixie.edu for more.
Did you know now is the time to look for summer 2020 internships as well as great jobs? Encourage your students to check out Handshake. Dixie.joinhandshake.com. That's Dixie.joinhandshake.com.
Hey Google, play Radio St. George on TuneIn.
This is KDXI St. George, Radio St. George at 100.3 FM. And we now present to you On the Arts, an hour of discussion and discovery about the arts in St. George and Southern Utah. And now your hosts for On the Arts, Michael and Christina Harding.
Good afternoon, St. George. This is Michael Harding. And again, I have to excuse my beautiful wife, Christina Harding, my beautiful wife and co-host. She won't be joining us today because, again, she is preparing youngsters with art and singing and dancing. I'm happy to say that she is actually working with a lot of children who have never done this before. And I think that's particularly exciting because we want to get as many people out there who want to participate in the arts actually participating, not thinking that this is inaccessible to them. And that's the whole point of the show. We want to blow the lid off of all of these little artistic secrets that we have here in St. George and Southern Utah in general, so that you can discover what those opportunities are to not only participate, maybe in something that you've had experience with, or maybe something that you just like to dabble in, and also be an audience member for, or a patron of. If you go to a museum and you check out some of the ceramics displays we have, or the sculptures we have, or the paintings we have, we pride ourselves on bringing a lot of different types of artists here into the studio. And I'm happy to say that this being season 4, we've had many guests, and I'm happy to say that I've learned a lot in here. I've always taken a lot of pride in my own artistic background, all the way back from being the snotty kid, not wanting to go to my piano lessons, all the way to being a professional actor and now, of course, teaching along with it. I'm learning a lot about a lot of different types of art out there. Now, as a little bit of an introduction to what we're going to be talking about today, we do have two wonderful guests here in the studio who are joining us for the second time, actually. But as always happens with this show, when we got to the end of our segment last time, we hadn't even scratched the surface. We always run out of time. In fact, when I began doing this show, I guess a little over 2 years ago, I would always schedule 3 guests who would come in succession because I thought, we have nothing to talk about. My gosh, we've got to fill this time. And I felt bad because we were either gypping the third guest, sometimes the second guest, or just canceling them altogether. And I thought, this is bad form when it comes down to it. But anyhow, we've got some pretty exciting stuff to talk about today. And as an introduction, I'm going to share with you a little story of my past and my own progression through this particular form of art. Now, I'm going to quote myself at 8 years old. And there were 3 words that I said that to this day, I remember why I said them, but I'm embarrassed that I said them. And they were, I hate opera. And my grandparents were very much into the arts, and I owe them a lot to, as far as getting me exposed to the arts. They took me to concerts. I was lucky enough to grow up in the Washington, D.C. area, so the Kennedy Center was very, very nearby, the Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts. And it was there particularly that I got to see plays, that I got to see musicals, that I got to go to concerts, and they had a lot of art displays. And most importantly, I got to go to the opera. And it was in their concert hall that they staged this most of the time, but they had several different theater spaces. And I remember saying quite adamantly, I hate opera. And the reason was that the only exposure to opera that I had was on a show that anybody over the age of 30 will know what I'm talking about, Warner Brothers' Bugs Bunny. And the only exposure I had was in a particular episode of Bugs Bunny where they did a parody of the Wagnerian opera or the Ring cycle. And at the time, all I saw were people screeching and overdoing their talking of their emotions and their singing of their emotions, and it was epic and frankly a little cheesy on my radar. And I thought, how appropriate that Bugs Bunny should be saying this about opera. And that's all I really knew. Then I had the pleasure of seeing a movie called Amadeus. And of course, this is a fantastic movie based on a Peter Shaffer play, Amadeus. And the character Amadeus actually said at one point when they were talking about opera, Salieri, who was Italian, said, oh, well, in Italy, we know nothing about love. And the character Mozart said, no, I don't think you do. All these sopranos screeching and screaming and these tenors who were just melting with their emotion. That's not love. That's, as he put it, rubbish. And I know a lot of people agreed with me at the time that opera was just a lot of loud singing, a lot of loud screeching, if you will, maybe a lot of rubbish. And it was actually that same year that I saw Amadeus. And this is the part that I'm proud to share with everyone. Back in undergrad, I was in 19 years old. And back then, of course, we know life is very stable and, your feelings are completely in check. Well, there was the girl. And I'll tell you, we did that dance around each other. We did shows together and such. And I will never forget seeing her out on the town with another guy. And, I can't even give her I can't even take the credit of she was cheating on me. No, we never really went out, so she hadn't done anything wrong. But the emotions being what they were at that age, I was devastated. I was ripped apart. And I did that whole young person thing of I walked around all night long and, looked up at the moon and shouted why and things of that sort. And I went back to my dorm where my roommate, who was a fellow nerd, I'm happy to say, as far as arts and things of that sort, he was playing La Traviata, and he was blasting it. And up to this point, he had really irritated me with this. And I remember sitting there moping, and I was listening to it, and I remember the thought of saying, I get what you're saying, to the person who was singing. And it occurred to me, oh my gosh, that's what opera is. It's expression, it's music, and everything that I love about musicals. I'm a huge Stephen Sondheim fan. Just the psychology of his music. I could understand what was going on. Shakespeare, I could understand what was going on, the complexity of these characters. And it occurred to me that I hadn't been fair to the composers and the creators of opera. And the fact that when I was feeling this huge emotion, I could finally understand what was going on. I thought, oh my gosh, this is about people and just an incredible expression through music and through this style that is opera. So I'm happy to say, if I had my 8-year-old self here with me, I would say, I get it, but just wait. You'll get it soon enough. Now, that brings me to my 2 guests here in the studio, which I'm very, very excited to chat with. We have Dr. Amy Neilsen.
Hello.
Hello there. If you could get a little closer to the microphone. Whoa. Okay, fantastic. And also we have Dr. David Sauer in the studio.
Hi.
Hey there. Very eloquent. The hi. Now, I will tell you that one of the great things about the last time that we had these two here in the studio is I started to understand the world of opera. Like I mentioned, I come from a theater world, but we have 2 very experienced opera singers and opera artists here that cover many, many different aspects, I should say, of the opera world. Just to give us a little introduction here, Dr. Neilsen, who the heck are you? Where are you from? How did you get into this?
I'm from southern Utah. Originally, I lived in Montana till I was 13, and then when I was 13, we moved to southern Utah, and I've been here ever since. I went away for school a few times, BYU, and then University of Utah. I know, I got a lot of teasing for that, believe me.
Just going to University of Utah? Or?
After BYU, yeah. So I'm, a native of both, and then went to the University of Northern Colorado for my doctorate, and I was away for a while. I just got my doctorate in December of 2018, and then I've been back here the last few years.
Okay, fantastic. Now, I do have to ask you, on the big game, University of Utah, BYU,
what did I do?
Where do you lie?
I don't know if I really want to say that over live radio.
We want to keep you on the good side of everyone.
But I will say, they only play one game together, so really you can root for both teams 99% of the time.
Let's say you root for that game.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
I think that's very delicately and politically handled. Very nice job.
Well, I had diehard roommates, and it was the most fun I had that were on opposite ends of the spectrum, and it was really fun to watch that game together with them in our living room. It was probably the best game I've ever watched was with those 2 girls that were one BYU diehard and one U diehard, and I was in between, and it was lots of fun.
Well, that's right. I have to say my favorite thing to watch during that game is basically the division down the hallway of the teachers that I teach with.
Yeah.
It is amazing. And I don't have a foot in either camp, really. I just enjoy the rivalry. I've always enjoyed telling people my father's a lieutenant colonel in the Army, and he works for the Navy at the Pentagon, so I don't know what he does on Army-Navy days, but I think he's in the same kind of camp. He just rather enjoys that.
Yeah, I if you have somebody that's on either side and you get to watch with them, that's the best thing ever.
Right. And Dr. Sauer, who are you? Why are you here?
Yeah, so I also went to BYU for my undergrad, and then I moved away to New York City, went to Manhattan School of Music for my master's degree, and was there for a while. And then I came back and went to University of Utah for my doctorate. And when it comes to the game, I don't know if this tells you anything.
Uh-oh.
Okay, and now, in case you are wondering, yes, put it towards the camera there. He is a BYU T-shirt. In case you are wondering what the heck we look like.
That was not planned either.
I'm happy to say we don't encourage disrobing here in the studio. But I will say, if you do want to see what we look like, check out the wonderful faces behind these melodious, mellifluous voices. You can check us out at Facebook. If you go to Radio St. George, we are broadcasting live right now, as well as archiving this whole conversation. So you can go to Radio St. George. You can find this entire interview later on. We will be done about 5 o'clock today. Or you can also check us out on YouTube. Just go to On the Arts with Michael and Christina Harding, and you can find this particular episode by typing in Dr. Amy Neilsen and Dr. David Sauer, or just go to the On the Arts list, and you will find this interview along with 3.5 seasons worth of these interviews. Some really great stuff out there. Now that we know sort of who you are and we know where you stand on football.
And I love the U as a school. I loved my time there, but when it comes to the game, loyal to the Royal.
I'm wondering what kind of comments we're going to get, the stream of comments on this page. But let me ask you guys, you're both involved with St. George Opera.
Right.
What's going on there?
Yeah, so Amy is our artistic director, and I'm the general director. Amy's also the founder of the company. She started it in 2017. 16, right. And we became our own nonprofit in 2017. And we've had a really great season this year. We just finished our first full-length opera production. We did La Boheme in October.
Fantastic.
So we just finished that up. And it was a lot of fun and very, very, very well received. They kept adding rows each night, and the last night they ran out of rows to add and ran out of seats to sell. So that was a good problem to have.
Where did you perform this?
At the Canta Center for the Arts.
Fantastic. And that's where I think I mentioned last time you were on the show, I was actually rehearsing a play called Framed. And this is when I ran into you backstage, I think.
That's the first time we met.
We were in there, and it was irritating at first. I'm not going to lie. We were rehearsing this play and having a great time doing it, but we kept getting interrupted with this music. And the most irritating part about it is that it was really pretty. It was really good. And we kept getting distracted. And then we heard Harry Potter. I think this was the Halloween.
Was our Halloween production.
Right. That was my introduction to you guys. So I'm glad you're still working out there at Canta. And you say your first full-length opera?
Right. Yeah. So in the past, we've done concerts and scenes. We've done one-act operas, but this was the first full 4-act opera that we've done. So it was a big step forward for us, a big undertaking, and it's a lot of fun.
Gotcha. And did both of you perform in this?
I performed in it. Amy was the assistant director, and had a lot
subtitles.
And she had a lot of other things going on behind the scenes, making sure all the set changes happened and all the props were in place before each act. And so there's a lot of all of the gears that had to run behind the scenes.
And I'll say that's where the real interesting show happens,
right?
Whether it be opera or theater.
Yep.
I think we could make a lot of money if we charged to have people observe what happens back there.
I think there's something to that.
Right.
Yeah, and at this point in my life, it's been too crazy. So Bohème is one of my most favorite operas. In fact, the very first opera I ever saw, I didn't really know what opera was, believe it or not, till I was around 21 or 22. I hadn't really ever heard it, never knew anything about it. Went to BYU, went and watched my very first opera all by myself. And it was La Bohème, and ever since then, it changed everything for me.
Were you a musician before that?
Yeah, definitely. My family, I've sung with my family since I was little. We were called the Von Trapp Family Singers because we're from Vaughan, Montana, and there's 6 of us, and we all sang, and we even performed at the Cox, actually. Maybe some of you older Southern Utah natives remember my family, the Neilsen family. We performed the Cox Auditorium for one of the concerts there, and we performed the Sound of Music songs just like in the movie, and it was really great. So we've been performing, my family every year since I was young, so.
Gotcha. When you saw that opera, the very first opera, was it love at first here? I guess that would be.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It just changed my whole perspective on music and everything and what I wanted to do. And
well, you and I were having a discussion before the show began as we were prepping about not knowing where is the percentage of people who are just naturally born with talent versus what can be taught versus how far a person can go with their voice. What is your take on that? Say we have some younger people here in St. George who they may have some training. They may have done show choir. They may have been part of maybe a madrigal group or something like that. And they're interested in opera. I'm assuming it's more than just going to a voice teacher and learning some popular songs. What is special about learning opera?
Yeah, so I think that there is a big component to it that does have to be learned. Learning how to use your breath to really make a lot of sound so that you can be heard through a big live orchestra without a microphone. Because when opera started in the 1600s and 1700s, 1800s, even early 1900s, they didn't have these huge sound systems.
I don't think bows had been founded
right,
yet.
yeah. So these amazing microphones that we're speaking into today didn't exist, and so, but you had these orchestras, and the orchestras kept getting bigger and bigger, and by the mid 1800s, you had some orchestras, 70, 80, 90 players in the opera orchestra, and the voices had to be able to carry over that. And so that's definitely a learned skill.
Right.
But physiology plays a lot into it too. There's certain people that with how your body is made, you have the potential to be louder and to make certain sounds that other people can't make. But that's not to say that somebody that doesn't have all of those physical gifts can't learn to sing certain types of opera.
It's just hard if you don't have it. Like, I don't naturally have a loud volume like David does. He's got a really great loud sound. And, I have a friend up in the U who was in choir with me, and he was louder than everybody. He didn't even have to try. And so for me, volume's a really difficult thing. And so part of that's learning, to get the ring, what we call the ring in the voice, or the squeal, and learning that through training. But it really helps if you have, I think it really helps if you have a lot of that natural ability to start with. Obviously, not like David said, it's not like you can't maximize on what your vocal abilities are through training, but it's definitely easier, at least in the opera world, if you have a lot of those natural gifts to start with. I just don't feel like I'm one that has had that. Like, sure, I've performed and I had a naturally good voice, but not really geared towards opera. So opera's always been probably more challenging for me than, say, someone that's been blessed with more natural ability towards that genre. So I think it just depends on the person and their background, and health is a big part of it. My health hasn't been good since my 20s, so that's played a major role in my challenges as a singer and performer too. So there's just a lot of factors that go into it.
Well, and I think just like anything that you're using your body to do something, there's going to be certain people that are better at basketball than other people. Yeah. Just, I'm not one of them, right?
Me neither. I raised my hand, by the way, and that was a mistake.
I can jump inches, and
my 5-year-old niece beat me at a horse game, so I'm terrible at basketball.
And so just like anything, there's going to be certain people that have, natural abilities that gear them towards that. Whether they discover that they have those or not is a whole nother issue. Yeah. But and I think the people that are really, really amazing, the Pavarottis and people like that.
Yeah, he's okay.
He's the greatest ever.
Yeah,
but
that's right.
They have that combination of great physical gifts and also a really great work ethic. Put those two things together in practice and spend a lot of years on their craft and become world class.
I think a lot of people don't quite understand how athletic singing and performing opera truly is. That I'm going to say, and I'm bragging just a little bit here, I can hold a tune in a bucket. Yep. Thank you very much.
Nice.
And also, I can imitate a very amazing operatic sound. Now, here's the thing.
I have to hear.
Right over the microphone. No, the reason I'm not going to is because I can imitate it, but I can only do it for a few seconds. In all honesty, I don't know how to sustain it. And that truly amazes me when I go to a full-length 4-act opera and I hear somebody able to maintain this. And I was surprised to find out that quite often in the theater, for example, you have 8 shows a week. Opera, I understand that's not the norm.
No. In fact, it's very rare to do back-to-back nights. You're usually every other day. So Utah Opera, for example, they'll open on Saturday. They'll go Saturday, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Sunday. Mm-hmm. So every other day for 5 shows in 10 days.
And that's for recovery, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's even when you're singing well, there's a certain amount of trauma, might be too strong of a word, but there's some wear that happens. Just like after you play a football game or something like that. You're going to be sore and have to stretch and recover and have some time to rest and prepare for the next game. It's the same for opera. At the end of La Boheme, for example, that we just did, I was spent by the end of the night. Not my voice, not so much, but my body. Just a lot of energy and a lot of mental concentration also. So,
well, I think I have a lot of admiration for anybody who can perform with that kind of stamina. And I'll take Kiri Takanawa. Am I pronouncing that correctly?
Yep.
I've had people say Kirite Kanawa. I don't know. But she's one of my favorites.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And especially, I'm going to put a little promo shout out to you. West Side Story. And a lot of people say, well, no, we're talking opera, not musical theater. One of my favorite, most inspirational things I've ever experienced is actually a video and a recording of Leonard Bernstein conducting West Side Story with Kiri Takanawa as Maria, Jose Carreras as Tony. And you would think, oh my gosh, it's opera. You won't be able to understand or opera singers. You won't be able to understand the words. I think they got it. Frankly, oh my gosh, it was this who's who of opera at the time.
Right.
You know, one of my heroes, Kurt Ullman, who I actually got to see live, or hear live, I should say. Some amazing performers. But one of the most shocking things I ever saw, and I'm happy to say this is the most shocking thing. Maybe this means my life is boring, I don't know. But you see these opera singers, you know, decked out to the nines in their costumes or in their concerts. They're dressed up for, I don't know, a ball with a Norwegian king. It's amazing. And I saw a video of what she does in her downtime. And she was in a hotel room. She was wearing sweats and she was, I don't know, eating pizza or something like that. And it was so wonderful because I said, normal people can do this. That's wonderful.
Yep.
But yeah, so the athleticism and the stamina is pretty amazing. I imagine it's an emotional toll as well.
Yeah, it can be, depending on the show. La Boheme, definitely.
There's a little bit of feeling in that.
There's other shows that are comedies. I probably less of an emotional toll with something that's kind of happy and fun. But
maybe like Gilbert and Sullivan.
Right,
maybe
exactly.
An operetta, or...
Right, yep. Or even the Marriage of Figaro by Mozart, you know, something like that. It's less emotional, but still, you know, a lot of stamina to get through that show.
Gosh, well, isn't it in Marriage of Figaro? Isn't there a moment where, I don't know the names, and I apologize for this, but a character, he thinks he's singing to his mistress, and it's his wife dressed up as his mistress?
Yeah, it's you're right, yeah.
Am I in the right opera?
Yeah,
And I just think, how beautiful is that? And again, we go back to Amadeus. I owe Amadeus quite a bit. But just the passion of Salieri when he was explaining this, it was so heart-wrenching to see a man expressing something so emotional, using tender words to his wife, but not knowing it is his wife, thinking it was someone else. And that just hit me, the poignancy there.
Yeah.
Actually, now, we are actually running out of time on this segment. Wow. But when we do come back, I do want to actually play some clips from a rehearsal, I believe, of an upcoming performance, La Traviata, or the next on the season.
I think it's from La Boheme.
Is it La Boheme?
We just finished, yep.
This shows my level of expertise at what we're doing here. But also maybe talk about the rehearsal process and what it is to rehearse opera. Now, again, I do invite our listeners, check out Facebook at Radio St. George. You can see this interview now, or you can check it out in archive, or go to YouTube and type in On the Arts with Michael and Christina Harding. We're here with Dr. David Sauer and Dr. Amy Neilsen, and we'll be right back after this news and information.
This is Henry Fogel, inviting you to join me for the next edition of Collector's Corner, heard every week on this station. This program will be the last in a series of 4 devoted to the great Russian conductor Kirill Kondrashin, and it will feature the 6th Symphony by Nikolai Miaskovsky and a Brahms violin concerto with soloist David Oistrakh. I hope you'll join me on the next edition of Collector's Corner.
Collector's Corner, Mondays from 11 till 1 on Radio St. George 100.3.
Outdoor furniture to endure the desert climate. Comfort, easy maintenance, custom made for your home. Outdoor Living, located at 735 South Bluff Street in St. George. Outdoor Living offers in-home consultation and design for custom outdoor furniture. Outdoor Living, a proud sponsor of the radio program here at Dixie State University.
Radio Dixie 91.3 and Radio St. George 100.3 wishes to say thank you to Stephen Wade Honda Mazda for their support of the DSU radio program. Whether or not you buy, their mission is to have you say, those are our guys. StephenWadeHonda.com.
You got it made at Stephen Wade.
Do you need 3 extra credit hours and are interested in political science? Then take Political Science 3960, Great Supreme Court Cases, Spring 2019, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, designed to review critical Supreme Court cases and how they have shaped the nation from a political and historical perspective, with instructor Robert R. Weinstein. Course registration available now.
This is Hannah with your Radio Dixie calendar for Tuesday, November 19th. From 12 to 1:30 p.m., International Student Services Languages of the World is in the Gardner Living Room. From 4 to 5 p.m., Interview Like a Pro is in the Holland Building, room 537. And from 7:30 to 9 p.m., there is a brass concert in Eccles 129. And that's your calendar on Radio Dixie 91.3.
Listen to the Chamber Music Society, Fridays at 11 on Radio St. George 100.3 FM.
Welcome back to Radio St. George 100.3 with On the Arts. And now your hosts, Michael and Christina Harding.
Welcome back. We are pleased to have in the studio Dr. Amy Neilsen and Dr. David Sauer, both of St. George Opera. And we're talking about the world of opera in general and the joy that it can be. Again, I am chastising my 8-year-old self. If you aren't familiar with that story I'm talking about, or if you just tuned in, check it out on our archives, either on Facebook, Radio St. George, or YouTube, On the Arts with Michael and Christina Harding. Now, I wanted to get into what it is to rehearse opera, what it is to put this together. Dr. Neilsen, we talked about how you were an assistant director for La Boheme, and we talked about the machinations that need to happen in creating this. Let's talk a little bit about the process. Of course, the opera is chosen. Then what happens?
Yeah, then you have to cast it, and that involves doing auditions, and then once it's cast, then, the costumes, people send in measurements. You have to, either buy, make, rent costumes. The set gets built or designed, then built, just like any show. Props have to be procured, all of those things. And then you get into rehearsal when all of the singers show up. And the first period of rehearsal, sometimes it's a few days, sometimes it's a week, depending on the company, will be music and just making sure that everything's really tight musically. And then you get into staging rehearsal. And that's pretty similar to straight theater or musical theater. And then you go into tech week and, tech rehearsals and dress rehearsals and, all of those things, just like you would with anything else, and then performances.
Let me ask you, how long is a standard rehearsal process for an opera?
It's usually anywhere from 3 weeks, a short one.
5 or 6.
Yeah, to 5-6 weeks of rehearsal
Depends
process.
on the company again.
Right.
Like La Boheme, we were super fast because we had to be so, it was less than 2 weeks total.
Wow. To do an entire 4-act opera.
Yeah, we were
staged in 1 week.
We were 2 weeks from our first rehearsal to opening. But we used a lot of singers that had done it before, so it wasn't their first time doing it. So that helped to cut down on the rehearsal time. It wasn't a new show for everybody. The director directed it before, and so that helped out a lot.
Well, this brings me to a question I have. Where do you find these people? You say you have auditions. Now, I have to admit, you go to L.A., everybody's an actor.
Right.
You go to the gas station, and they're like, well, I'm really an actor, You go to any town that has theaters, there are actors everywhere. Or you go to an artistic community, there are ceramicists or painters. I don't know a lot of people that walk around singing, well, I'm an opera singer.
Yeah.
Where do you find these folks?
Because of that, it's a small world. And so if you've done in any decent amount of work in the opera world, a lot of people already, so that helps. You know who's nice to work with, and as well as being a good singer, and so sometimes those things happen by invitation. We also hold auditions. There's several websites that people go to find out about auditions for opera, classicalsinger.com, Young Artist Tracker, and anyway, there's several different websites that we publish those on, as well as our own site and Instagram and Facebook. And then people come and audition and,
or submit online.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
At least for our company, we allow that.
Yeah, we'll take
online submission. So
we'll hear YouTube clips or things that people send in and find voices. So it's pretty fun.
Do you provide the housing for these folks, or what happens?
Yeah. So we the people that were from out of town, when we did our rehearsal, we had housing for them. We were rehearsing in Salt Lake because a lot of the people that were in the show lived close to there, so it was just more convenient. Then when we came down here, we had host families for everybody, and that was...
but we're always in need of more, so if you're listening and you want to host, or especially if you're a hotel, we used to have a sponsorship for a hotel to put up some housing that was really great, and that's not available anymore to us, so we're actually looking for official housing sponsors as well. So whether you're a host family or whether you're a hotel that is interested in
if
getting
you'd like
the right
to
app and
observe
wants to
the specimens in their home environment,
and you get to learn about opera in a way that you probably wouldn't just coming to the show. And the people that are our host families get certain privileges of access to things and
do they hear arias
also
in the shower?
Probably. and definitely, I'm sure, some warming up and all the crazy things that opera singers do to get their voices ready. And, we're a little bit neurotic sometimes. So.
I think that's the artist mantra.
Yeah.
I am neurotic. I was a psychology double major in undergrad. And I actually had to give up that second major because we were in a class, abnormal psychology.
Mm-hmm.
And they were showing us a video of a patient with a certain affliction. And I had to get out of it because I had stranger friends in the theater. And I thought, I'll probably be doing a lot of harm if I went into therapy when this is where I live. But anyhow, so you do house them. How many, or what is the ratio, would you say, of local talent versus people that you bring in?
Yeah, so on this last show that we did, we had one singer from Texas, and then the rest of the singers were all from Utah, from various parts of Utah, which was really nice to have people. They weren't all local to St. George, but they were all Utah-based.
Got it.
And it really depends on our show as far as local, meaning Southern Utah participant. Like we still try to do things throughout the season that include singers in the community as well. That's really important part of our vision and mission as St. George Opera is to give opportunities to all types of artists.
Yeah, and opera versus other types of, if you're an actor, if you're a Shakespearean actor, you can play basically in every Shakespeare play that there is, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you're an opera singer, you're much more limited to things that are written for your specific voice type, not just soprano, tenor, bass, but what type of soprano are you? How big your voice is, what kind of things your voice can do. Can it do all kind of movement that's acrobatic, or is it better for big, long, sustained singing over a bigger orchestra? So, you're more limited to that. So we have to find a bigger variety of singers depending on the show that we're doing also.
And I mean, most opera companies, they audition outside. It's not ever just exclusively from the city, really. It's just national singers coming together, all over the nation.
Right, and we were spoiled with La Boheme that we got to use so many Utah singers, but that unfortunately won't always be the case. So we definitely look far and wide to find who's going to be best for the show that we're doing.
Well, with your next show, I believe it's La Traviata, the next full-length opera, and we'll talk about some other opportunities as well to experience St. George Opera. Have you begun that process already?
Yeah, we're right in the middle of it right now.
Yes.
Yep, and planning the costuming and planning that we just had a meeting a few days ago about sets and costumes and concept and so we're right in the middle of all of that fun stuff right now. So it's a good time while we're also still trying to get ready for the concerts and things that we have coming up before that also.
Yeah, we have a Christmas
and what are
concert.
some of those?
Yeah, we have a Christmas concert on the 13th, is it,
December 13th.
In the Tabernacle, so it's free, so come.
And of course, that's the Downtown Tabernacle here in St. George.
Yes, downtown in St. George. Our Christmas concert, and then I believe in February we're going to have a Valentine concert, yes?
Yep.
What did we decide on the date
and
for that? I don't remember.
And then there's also a gentleman who used to run KBYU Classical 89. Walter Rudolph is coming down, and he's doing a lecture at the Tabernacle in February on the history of opera in Utah.
Wonderful.
Which is really exciting. He used to be the president of the UC Bierling Foundation, which is really, he was a famous Swedish tenor, but had a bigger international career, and he's talking about a lot of the famous opera singers that have come to Utah, either for concerts or to perform in operas over the years, and we're going to provide some singing during that also, the little bit of showcase of La Traviata.
Wonderful. Well, I have a question about the content of the Christmas concert. Are there a lot of Christmas operas out there? What are we talking about?
There's not a lot of Christmas operas out there.
I hope to we'll actually do some at some point.
Yeah.
It's just Christmas songs, I should say, just concert style. So, solos, duets, trios, quartets, or a few group numbers.
There might be some
based
familiar
around
work.
Christmas.
Yeah,
There will be some familiar
Holy
songs
Night,
for sure.
Oh Come All Ye Faithful,
Yeah,
all of the
Christmas. But,
classics.
Christmas at the opera, so come. It'll be really enjoyable.
I have to tell you, I'm very much looking forward to hearing O Holy Night and having that high note hit correctly. That's, I think, something we all crave.
And if you want to hear it sung this weekend, Jubilee of Trees is this weekend, and Dave and I will be performing at Night of the Stars along with some other great artists, so he'll be singing O Holy Night. So 6 to 8 p.m.
So no
come
pressure
to
with what I just said.
Yeah, right.
Oh, yeah, he can.
We'll
he
call
can
it
do
Christmas on steroids.
and I'm sorry, what was the information for Jubilee of Trees?
Well, the concert is from 6 to 8 p.m. on Friday, right?
It's on the 23rd. Is that correct?
Yeah,
1920. I'm doing the math in my head.
See how well prepared we are?
Saturday night, I believe.
The
23rd.
Well, yes. So, see, we don't even know our own dates.
They just sing, and it's wonderful. They perform. Well, I do want to share just a little bit. They've shared with me, actually, some clips of some rehearsals that have taken place, and this is from the rehearsal for La Bohème.
Yes.
I believe. I would like to play this just so that you get an idea of the quality you're getting. Again, we're in a relatively small town. Again, I don't have a lot of people that come up to me on a daily basis and say, well, I'm an opera singer. So it would be, I think, a surprise to a lot of people that there's this secret called St. George Opera. We hope it doesn't stay a secret too long.
Absolutely.
And it certainly is growing in popularity and also notoriety. I'd like to play this for you just so you get an idea of what you'll be hearing. So let's take a listen here. Boy, I can hear it, definitely. There we go. All right. Well, that was actually, I think, rather beautiful.
Oh, yeah.
This is not just walking down the street and hearing somebody humming.
Right.
This is some actual talent going on here. And that's just an example of what you're going to hear. Again, I go back to when I was rehearsing that play Framed. I thought it was a recording at one point. I truly did. and was thrilled actually to come out and see this rehearsal. I was just mentioning that one of my favorite experiences with the opera was when I was visiting the Met. And James Levine, who is a very well-known composer, certainly at this time particularly, I was yelled at by him because I walked into a rehearsal I wasn't supposed to walk into, but the door was open, ladies and gentlemen, so that's
It'd be
why.
tempting, I have to admit.
Right.
I'd want to go in.
And he had the towel over his shoulder and everything that, famous James Levine stuff. But that was, what part of La Boheme was that from?
Yeah, that's the beginning of Act 3 when Mimi is telling Marcello, her boyfriend's friend, that Rodolfo, her boyfriend, is not being very nice, and she doesn't exactly know why. He's being jealous.
Right, as sometimes happens in operas. I actually enjoy, a lot of my students will say, well, operas, they're so far out there, and the stories are so fantastical and epic, and then they'll walk down the hall talking about the Marvel movies and the Avengers and such. And I'm like, it's pretty much on the same level, y'all. Just, Iron Man may not be singing, but...
Well, you've got a lot of operas, like verisme operas, real-to-life operas. So, like, Bohème is starving artist. It's a true-to-life story trying to survive, and about, love and sickness and death and, hope and loss. And, I mean, these are all real human experiences and emotions, and that's really what's at the heart of a lot of opera. Yes, you have some that are fantastical and supernatural, but then you've got many that are, real to life stories as well. So there's just a wide range of experiences you can have in the opera world.
Right.
And stories.
And I think that's what opera does maybe better than anything else is that combination of music and words express emotion in a way that is hard to do any other way. Mm-hmm. There's a certain way that music helps us experience certain emotions and how it heightens things, where just speaking alone, even very passionate speaking, can't quite reach that same depth that you can when you add that great music in.
That true emotional psychology going on.
And that's why I fell in love with opera, was because of that, Bohème, listening to that and like it touched me so deeply in a way. And there's some people who listen to opera and they'll be like, and they don't feel anything. And I understand that. We all have our likes and dislikes. But for me, that's what I fell in love with, was the impact, the depth that it went to for me. And I think those that appreciate and understand it or will go more, they'll feel that more. And that's not to say that, classical music or other styles won't have that, but there's just something, like David said, that's unique about opera in that we all feel really deep emotions, and the combination of the music and the acting and the singing and the style and the orchestra and everything all together makes it what it is, that it's just this level that's not, it's just a deeper level, I guess. I don't know quite what I'm trying to say. But.
And Michael, like you said, when you walked in and your roommate was playing La Traviata, that it hit you, right? Uh-huh. And the really great operas do that. I think really great art of all types has that ability to convey things in a unique way. But I love the way that opera is able to do that. And this year we've picked operas that try to do that. La Bohème and La Traviata are in the top 5 every year of most performed operas across the world. And there's a reason for that. The music's really good, but the stories are also really, really good. And they are really easily understood and easy to relate to for everybody.
And we're hoping to increase like community engagement by doing things maybe that are easier for those of you that aren't as familiar with opera. So, Opera in the Park concert, and maybe some community workshops eventually for parents and their kids to come that revolve around an opera and activities and making it fun, and working some one acts that are shorter, so maybe an hour long instead, that sometimes we'll have spoken dialogue. These things so that you don't have to feel like I have to start with a really long opera. But like I said, I started with Bohème and then it changed everything for me. So it's not to say if you don't go to see one of these really great operas that you may not have the same experience. But there are some other things we hope to do eventually to kind of get those of you that might be more tentative involved. And we need people. We need volunteers. We need donors. We need board members. So there's lots of ways to get involved. So if you have any interest at all, just contact us.
And you have a website that they can go to. What is that?
stgeorgeopera.com.
Easy enough.
Yep.
And is that SAINT or ST?
ST.
Well, we changed because most people were too unfamiliar with SAINT, so ST George Opera wasn't available for a long time. Yay, we finally got it. So now it's easier,
Who was
everybody.
the other St. George Opera that had that?
Well, I mean, we were actually formed in, St. George Opera was actually formed in 2012, I believe it was, and I was on the board at the time as the Community Outreach and Education Director. I also performed in the Impresario when we did that here in the St. George the St. George Opera House, excuse me. And then it was disbanded when the director moved away, and I came back and wanted to revive it and make it our own nonprofit, and so we did.
I'm glad it's here, actually.
Yeah.
We are too.
Yep. Well, and I was just thinking that, La Boheme is what the musical Rent is based on. It's basically just a modern adaptation of that same story.
Right.
And so a lot of people will be familiar with that. La Traviata is the opera that they go see in Pretty Woman.
Is it really?
It
so
is.
If
it's been a while since I've seen that movie.
I mean, there's some people that love that movie, right? And they go see that part, and Julia Roberts is just, in awe of this opera, and that's La Traviata. So you've probably heard it before.
There's so many experiences that we have that opera is a part of. I hear them on airline commercials all the time.
All the time.
And you think, oh, I know that melody.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's from. And I remember there's been this kick for a long time. I remember Jerry Seinfeld's wife or somebody started it, of getting your kids to eat vegetables by hiding them in food. I have to say that was one of my experiences with opera, with Pirates of Penzance.
Yeah.
And I love that show, and I thought, oh, it's operetta, it's not real opera.
Right.
And there's a moment in there that I absolutely adore, and it got me every night almost as much as La Traviata did that one time. I can't remember what it's called, but it's Mabel singing to Frederick, and and I honestly don't remember what it is. It just has fa la la in it. But I remember every night I was loving it, thinking, oh, I love this musical number, yada, yada, yada. And it didn't hit me until later that I was listening to practical opera.
Oh, yeah.
Right there.
Yep.
And I think everybody can hum something that is from these.
Oh, yeah.
Let me ask you, do both of you have a favorite that you would love to see done that might not be one of the five bigs?
Oh yeah, I have a Spanish opera by the composer Manuel de Falla, and this is a little bit obscure, but I love it. It's called La Vida Breve, the short life, the brief life, and it is amazing. So if anybody wants to go listen to it,
we may end up doing it at some point. We'll see.
there's a flamenco dancing in it, and there's it's pretty cool. If anybody wants to listen to a recording, there's a recording on YouTube with Victoria de Los Angeles singing the title role, and it's really, really special.
I told David just recently, I didn't know that opera, so I'm going to have to go look it up.
We learn
myself.
things on the Arts.
Yeah. So mine, I love Gounod's, Romeo and Juliet. It's fabulous. I mean, it's kind of a big one too, but it's not as well known as Traviata or Bohème, but. It's absolutely amazing, and I hope we do it here at St. George Opera sometime too. I told David I really want to do it.
It's not a bad one to do.
Yeah.
Sure.
Well, that's right. I have a lot of my thing is Shakespeare. Yep. That's what I've done most of, and I often have a lot of students who say, "Well, what does Shakespeare have to do with opera?" And I say, "Well, first of all, let's look at how many." But also, we always start with "Oh, for a muse of fire." And I just say, what are you going to do with that O? And, they think, oh, well, I'll just say, oh, for a muse of fire. And I'm like, no, really go for it. And they start playing and inadvertently start doing operatic size with these pieces. I really love doing that tie-in there. Let me ask you, do you have a vision for St. George Opera? Or are we just coasting to see what happens?
No, yeah, we have a definite, like Amy said, we want to keep doing full operas and to kind of build up the year by year audience and keep growing that audience that comes to those things, but to also do other things that engage the community through opera in other ways that aren't just coming and sitting down and watching a show, but where it can be more hands-on, where they can experience, whether that's doing maybe a summer camp for children where they get to come and be in an opera.
Yeah, there's called Once Upon a, sorry David, but Once Upon an Opera. It's a great company out of California. I can't remember the city. Anyway, I've talked to the founder, Virginia Stewart, and she's happy to have us do that here. So, that's taking fairy tale stories and having the kids perform them like in an opera style. It's so fun.
Mm-hmm. And, workshops, lecture series, all kinds of things where people can learn about what happens behind opera and the history of it, so that when they come, it's not just a show, but they really feel like they know the art form.
Well, we hope that you're around for a long time. We invite everybody, check out stgeorgeopera.com. Thank you for being here, Dr. Neilsen and Dr. Sauer. And we hope, until you hear from us next, that you keep your focus on the arts.
You've been listening to On the Arts with Michael and Christina Harding. Search Facebook, YouTube, Podbean, Spotify for Radio St.